Hey guys, how you going? I am VaulSC. Welcome back to my coverage of the Bio-Heist infiNity ITS tournament in Hamilton from recent times, where I was playing my Shasvastii for 5 games straight against local infiNity players, and we're now up to the last game, round 5. If you haven't seen my other videos in the series, well, spoiler alert, I got 2 major victories, a minor victory, and then a loss. Did lose fair and square to our Yucheng friend previous round, due to a little bit of bad luck, but solid play from my opponent for the most part, despite a couple of mistakes. Now we're into the final game, up against Vanilla Panoceania, and yet again running up against our buddy Hexa, who of course features in many of my games and on my channel very regularly. So the mission this time will be capture and protect. The thinking here is that if I was to do really exceptionally well, like just blow out 10-0 victory, and the guy that beat me in the previous round was to lose his game, then I could actually still win the tournament. The problem though is it's going to be very difficult because my opponent is a strong opponent, and it's a difficult mission to get a blowout on. You've got to really go over there and grab the beacon objective with your with any model, I suppose, but you've got to hand it off to your data tracker and get it back to your deployment zone and stop your opponent from doing the same. And then, you know, if they've got hacking and jammers and crazy koalas and mines and all of that fun stuff and hidden deployment to AO rows, it's just really hard to do. Anyway, gonna give it our best shot. And first of all, let's just jump into the list that my opponent's running. You guys may have encountered this before on my channel a couple of times. It is the dreaded double tag list with Joan of Arc that has only just become better. Although bear in mind, there's recently been an FAQ which says that if the cutter starts in hidden deployment, it's not generating its tactical awareness order. We didn't know that at the time of this game. Anyway, the dreaded superior firepower list, which you guys have seen me face up against more recently with Sun Ce in that epic dramatic game that we had, and then previously many months ago when I played my Nathematic and Toronted combo into it as well. But here's the latest incarnation for this event. So importantly, there is a Spec Ops. Let's take a look at what he's got here. It's Drop Bears, the Jammer, of course, Stun Pistol, Mine Layer Engineer, and there's doesn't seem to be any stat bonuses at all unless I'm blind. Nothing wrong with this combination. I mean, the important ones there are to have Jammer Engineer. You don't really need a Doctor because it's more about reviving the tags. He does have a Monstrucker in the list already, so you don't necessarily need an Engineer, but I agree with the inclusion of the Engineer because you're going to be wanting to cover both tags on either side of the board and potentially removing some sort of isolation or immobilization from Joan, so it's not a bad idea to have that. Mine Layer, really useful for this collection of missions. Obviously Jammer's great. Another way that you can play this is potentially taking the Holo Projector 1 with your Jammer, or increasing your willpower or something like that. But generally he's okay, and having the mines there with the Drop Bears as well gives him the opportunity to defend really well. So I don't really mind this setup. To refresh you guys as to what's actually in the main component of the list here, if I can actually just move the correct component of my Streamlabs. Seraph. And of course it's the HMG version. Really important not to take the Spitfire version because with the Orc Spot tagging along, it prevents you from using coordinated orders, which is one of the strengths of this list, to use Joan's special coordinated order on the tags as well. Cutter, obviously, extremely powerful. We just talked about the Spec Ops. Joan of Arc herself, of course, you want to take the Lieutenant option. He's taken the AP Close Combat Weapon just because he needs to save that single point, and I agree with that. If 1 point is all you can spare and there's no other way to get it, then you have to downgrade her weapon, which a lot of the time she either won't use or it won't matter which weapon she's got when she does swing at you. Monstrucker, brilliant, because again, all of these irregular guys become regulars thanks to Joan, and in some ways it's better than an Engineer anyway. You've got higher willpower, even though there's a Tech B there. I mean, I think the Tech B gives him +1 anyway because he's an Engineer. I don't even know how it works anymore. The 9-point Helot, obviously amazing value. Tech B Warcore, a couple of Fugazis. Really, you have to include this kind of combination of troops just to be able to afford the double tag plus Joan. So yet again, I will be running the Shishkin list. And we do the dice roll. My opponent goes for, I think, the table side that he wants. Can't 100% remember what the initial outcome was, but I do remember that he's going to take the first turn, and I'm going to be choosing deployment, I think, or I might have just gone straight for second turn. Either way, it's important for me to have that last turn, because if he wants to grab the objective, he'll have to send something over to grab it, and I'll have an assault hacker right there, so I should be able to possess a tag or immobilize Joan or whatever it is. Whereas if I'm taking the final turn, hopefully I've spent the entire game harassing him with the tiger creatures and wearing him down with Shishkin. I can move over there with the Link team and hopefully grab the objective with her as the data tracker. So we're playing on this wonderful table here. I'm going to zoom out just so we can take a closer look at it. This is one of the Battle Kiwi tables, and of course there's quite a lot of height, as you can see. So what am I going to get? I'm going to take the pink, I think. So you got the PanO over this side, and we're going to have Shasvastii on this side over here. You can already see him setting up with Warcore, Monstruckers inside this building, Flash Pulse here, Helot's going to be around here. This is the real Helot. Tech B, Joan of Arc in here. We've got the Spec Ops. He's going to be putting the Seraph here and the Cutter around this side with another Flash Pulse over there. Very small, compact, but very effective list. Okay, so there's the look at it, right to left. So Warcore, Monstrucker in this building, you can see his base there. In fact, I'm covering up the Warcore right now. Let's just move this. Closer look in here, the Helot decoys, Spec Ops, Joan, Tech B. Left-hand side, you can see more decoys. That's the mine from the Spec Ops out there next to the objective. The Cutter is behind one of these buildings, I think around there. Flash Pulse to the left. With my counter deployment, I'm putting down a Noctifer and hidden deployment there. Really great thing about his position, he's overlooking the walkway where Joan and the Spec Ops actually are, and he's overlooking the enemy objective, and he's got a little bit of cover here, so potentially if the Seraph moves out, I might be able to engage him with a missile. This is my deployment around the right-hand side. So we've got the Ichthydron on the extreme right-hand side, Tiger Creature with the drone. You just saw that my Noctifer was hidden deployed there, so he's going to get a long view through there and through that long line through there and around here, of course. Mentor and so forth are in the building. We'll see there in a sec. Another creature over here, and Shishkin's team is going to be in that hangar on the left-hand side of the deployment zone. I also need a better case for carrying my tokens around. As you can see, it's starting to get a bit messy. So midfield, the Mentor is on the top level prone. His ambush marker is below that, just hoping that my opponent doesn't realize I've got a Mentor and thinks it's a mine. One can hope, although he's smart enough to figure it out. Tiger Creature's going prone. We've got the bot over here. This is the T-drone actually at the back. And then inside the building, you can see Shishkin prone there with the Spec Ops, the Tenchos at the back, the Fort Observers around the side, another creature right around the left-hand side of the building. Another closer view, you can see the Ichthydron in the corner. Very important because I'm trying to spread out the repeater network because I've got an Assault Hacker in the midfield. Assault Hacker is actually the Reserve Trooper, which is going to go down the extreme right-hand side. And the thinking is, I've also got a Caliban further to the midfield over in this part of the battlefield. But with the Shrouded Hacker being there, it covers this long angle through towards me and through this big gap here. So it's quite a wide network, and he's got nothing that can bomb me or spec fire me or climb to the top and get rid of me. So there's a high chance that this thing will actually get a decent hack at some point. Alright, Reserve Trooper over here, it's the Seraph in play, and I think we're ready to go. Data Tracker being handed over to Shishkin. I think his Data Tracker is going to be Joan. There it is there, Data Pack right next to Joan. Everybody is prone. Monstrucker, just a bit of a picture of where he is inside this little hut. Okay, so Noctifer, probably the very first order of the game. What's happening? And I can't believe this is happening, but he's deciding initially not to move the tags out, but to stand up from the position where the Spec Ops was. So standing him up, no longer prone, and walking out to this spot here. Now, let's slow down. Let's talk about this for a minute. When you're up against Shasvastii, you know, the availability of Noctifers is 3, and it's possible to count up your opponent's stuff and ask whether the Noctifer's there or not, whether there's at least one. Of course, you know, your opponent can be playing a Cadmus with a Red Fury, which is not on the table, or some kind of Malignos, which is a hidden deployment as well, that general kind of thing. But would you want to risk this kind of play? Is the Spec Ops important? What he's trying to do here is he's trying to leave the safety of cover and head towards the middle of the table. And I'm just going to show you by closing this for a second and opening up my folder and going back to the original photo here where I can show you a bit more easily. Spec Ops starting there in the very first order of the game, moving down the walkway, and he's about to get shot by the Noctifer, which is situated underneath this building around about there. In fact, I'll move my camera just where I'm sort of drawing around here. And the reason he's doing that is because I've also placed the Caliban with MSV1 Spitfire here as a camo marker prone, and he doesn't know what kind of camo marker it is. So with the Spec Ops moving out, he's planning on continuing along here until he gets within range to do an intuitive jammer attack from this position, which will hopefully reveal my camo marker and isolate it and stop it from doing any more damage, and that will allow him to tell whether the centrally placed camo marker is the assault hacker or not. Turns out the assault hacker is really over here, up the top. But by standing up with the Spec Ops and moving, you're making yourself susceptible to a potential Noctifer. Yes, it does flush the Noctifer out of cover and you can easily kill it with your tag, but would you want to lose your Spec Ops at this point in the game when, you know, that's the jammer? The jammer does obviously make it a lot harder to move in and grab the beacon here. What I'm going to have to do later, because Shishkin and her team are over in this hangar over here, is to move around this part, grab the beacon, and then pull back to the deployment zone. And it's a lot easier if you have the jammer there for the entire game to defend against that. So he's really hoping that either I don't have the Noctifer or won't reveal it, or he feels like it's worth trading the Spec Ops for the Noctifer. And I really question that, but I don't know 100%, you know, whether it's fully a bad play or not. You guys might like to weigh in on whether you think, you know, it's a good or bad play, assuming that you don't know whether there actually is a Noctifer there or not. So I think it's not really the best play, because it means that if I blow them up, then nothing can really deal with my camo markers that are on the high ground up above the battlefield. And the other problem with this, of course, is that as he moves out and gets hit by the missile is hitting him here where he doesn't have cover, so I'm going to be hitting on a 15, and it's going to splash Joan. And of course, Joan is not going to have the opportunity to dodge or anything because it's the active turn and the order's being spent on this model here. So wow, the missile goes off and lands on the Spec Ops, and incredibly, both of us roll a crit. So the Noctifer splashes on a 15 and this guy dodges on like a 10 or whatever it was he needed, and the Spec Ops survives. And Joan, although she's got to take 3 saves, passes one of them and doesn't die. So we came very close to Joan completely losing it here, and that would have handed me the win surely. Like, I would have easily won this game if he's left with an army that, you know, only has like 5 regular orders for the rest of the game and no, you know, lieutenant command token kind of thing. So I'm not going to say that I got lucky to not kill Joan. It's very likely she would have passed one of the armor saves with her 3 attempts. It was likely she wasn't going to die, but he kind of put himself at risk there. If you know you're going to get shot at by a Noctifer by moving out like that, you probably wouldn't want to do it. But then again, you don't know 100% whether the Noctifer's there or not, but do you risk it? Also, a little bit lucky for him to survive with the dodge, but it's similar to the last game where my Spec Ops was dodging against my opponent's missile, the Hacktow. You know, it's 1 dice on a 15 versus 1 dice on a 14. Oh, sorry, no, a 15 versus a 10, or in the other case, a 14 versus a 10. In this case, a 15 because the Noctifer's lower ballistic skill, but ignores the cover because he moved past the cover and didn't have that. So wow, the Spec Ops get to continue now, and crucially the Noctifer is revealed so we can go after it. So we've got the cutter revealing now and moving around to a spot where he can actually start firing at it. I actually had the position of the cutter wrong. It was on this side of the battlefield, and I originally said it was on this side, but no matter, we know where it is now. So this is where the cutter is, and he's firing towards the position of the Noctifer as he moves out here. Initially, I somehow managed to survive some sort of dodge and sort of pulled away, and this is going to cost him more orders as he's moving in. But he's really got very little else to do with his turn apart from move the Spec Ops along this little gangplank here and then come and kill the Noctifer. So you can see the cutter in the distance there moving towards our position of the Noctifer, just sort of swiveling to gain line of sight to him, and eventually he does land the hits home and does destroy him. I also want to take the moment to point out that, you know, that's where the tags need to move to get to the objective, either there or through around here. And if they come around this way, there is, of course, the Shrouded Assault Hacker up on top of the building, as you guys can clearly see, and it's prone, so there's an opportunity there. Note that the cutter does have stealth, though, so that may be one way of getting past it. So here we go, cutter moving in, and now what we can do is declare some coordinated orders, and Joan's moving out as well. And you've got to ask yourself, what if there's another Noctifer? I don't think that that's too much of a worry at this stage, because a smart player can sort of add up everything I've got. But theoretically, I've got 3 camo markers out in the field, and 1.5 SWCs are tied up in that MSV1 Caliban Spitfire. So if my mentor is not actually mentor but a cheaper model, if there is a cheaper model, and if my Shrouded Assault Hacker is actually not a Shrouded Assault Hacker but really a cheap version of that, and if my Caliban MSV1 Spitfire was actually a much cheaper version of a camo marker, I could have actually had enough points here to unleash with another Noctifer. It actually would have been legal. So my opponent risking it here with just 1 wound left on Joan, it's a bit risky, don't you think? Anyway, I don't actually have that other Noctifer, and he continues moving. So Spec Ops now coming in range of our friendly camo marker over here, and he does indeed go for the intuitive jammer once it gets close, and I do indeed attempt to evade it, but sadly his jammer does very, very well, and I end up getting isolated on the very first order, so our Caliban Spitfire unfortunately is neutralized by that. It's a shame, really, that this guy hadn't really been killed earlier, because I love the position of this Caliban. He would have been able to move out very carefully along the pathway here and go after Joan, potentially to assassinate her. He also, if he gets the jump on the cutter, having MSV1 and a Spitfire at the correct range span does mean that he's actually a decent match for the cutter when it's the Caliban's active turn, and over a long number of orders actually is quite likely to destroy the tag at some point. It's not a guaranteed thing, and it is a bit risky, but it's probably worth doing if you get the right like positioning. Let's say the tag's you know, less than 16 inches away. Let's say he's 12 inches away and doesn't have any cover. I mean, I'm hitting on 15s on 4 dice, and the tag would be shooting back -3 cover, -3 camo, so be hitting on 9s on 1 dice, so you can beat him pretty reliably there. Anyway, Spec Ops planting some more mines just to defend him against the Caliban, using his single irregular order later on to move in. Joan also going prone, moving around, everybody shuffling, and the cutter basically getting the hell out of there. So you can see all of the mines going down from the Spec Ops, and I'm isolated in the corner. So everybody pulling back, we're going to suppression fire, we're removing a few things. By the end of the turn, he does actually opt to remove this Helot here, because he's worried that if the Seraph takes some hits, the Helot's actually blocking his position into cover, and he wants to be able to guts into cover. So a very wise foresight there to remove the decoy so that the Seraph can actually get back. And of course, Cutter getting over here as well, and his position is going to be important as well for a reason we're about to understand. Okay, so Helot moving into base contact with the objective here, which is going to yield the beacon later on, and Joan going prone. Okay, so Shasvastii turn 1 now. We're putting a little marker next to this guy to show that he's isolated, and then I'm using Impetuous to stand up with some of the tiger creatures and move towards them, but not too far towards them that I'm going to detonate the mine initially. So I can use one tiger creature to move over and then blow everything up. I also kind of want to move in and unleash a chain cult at some point. Now the other tiger creature on the right hand side of the map is able to move forward, and it doesn't come into line of sight of either of the tags, so that does actually allow him to continue. And if you guys can see what I'm seeing here, moving through here and towards the position of the cutter, because there's a big obstacle of total cover there, he doesn't get shot at by the Helot in this part of the battlefield. So what he's able to do is he's able to move here initially, and that's going to force, like if with the first short skill, force a change facing ARO from the tag, and with the second one, because he's 6 inches speed, he can move around here into base contact. He will get hit by a flash pulse by this model, but the point is really just to leave the tiger creature in base contact with the tag by the end of the turn to really annoy him and make it more difficult for the cutter to move out, and you don't really care about losing the 6-point model, to be honest. So here we are, tiger creature going into close combat with the cutter. At this point, the other tiger creature on the high ground moves through, is able to detonate both of these mines, and that'll give me an opportunity to move up and potentially deal with this jammer here. The Link team now moving out. So Shishkin gathering everybody up, and everybody's just moving around, and we're going to start heading towards the position of the Helot. And the plan here is to move out, destroy the Helot, which is covering the beacon. That's going to remove one order for the rest of the game, and start chipping away at the Seraph. I've got a full 3 turns to do this, and really it's just that last turn that matters. So if I can soften them up a bit, it's going to make it a lot easier in the late game. So a wonderful shot of the very assorted team moving out. Note that the Tiger Creature is not part of the team. So we've got Shishkin, Spec Ops, Tensho, T-Drone, and not pictured also as the Fort Observer around the side. So here we are, moving in, and I can get to a point where I can fire at the Seraph, I think, with the assisted fire going down on the T-Drone. Although initially we're not quite going after the Seraph, we want to go after the Helot, I think was the correct sequence of it. Somehow, no, we do have to go after the Seraph first. So the T-Drone going after the Seraph, and interestingly, with assisted fire on the T-Drone, and because we can just barely push past this little forest here, the T-Drone's going to be hitting the tag on 18s. And the tag, unfortunately, not really enjoying it because he's, I think, firing at long range for the tag, going for maybe a dodge instead. Can't 100% remember. He was initially in a suppression fire, landing the missiles on him, and he ends up failing. I only get 1 hit through, but he fails all 3 armor saves against the extremely destructive missile. So that was rather unlucky for his tag, just to completely get rendered unconscious there. He can revive his tag later, but this is a really good bit of luck going my way. Although, when you're taking a missile like that, the chances of failing 3 armor saves against a missile, you know, this tag's not got the best armor in the game. It's like 7, and he's not gaining cover because it's a missile. So, yeah, it is definitely possible to fail all 3. Here's the really interesting part of the game, though. We've got Shishkin moving out to take on the Helot. So importantly, if I can just show the position of Shishkin here, she's got a nano screen. She's able to move over here, and the Helot is there. And as the Helot shoots towards Shishkin, the Helot is going to be in the good range band, -3 for the nano screen, so hitting on, I think, 12s. What's that? The BS of a Helot? BS 11. So 11's on 2 dice, right? And everybody over here is staying out of range because the template's going to impact even if he loses the face-to-face roll. So crucially, Shishkin goes after our friendly Helot here and needs 18s on 5 dice because it's a 5-man link team, isn't it? And I'm rolling all 5 of them up against this pleb who's hitting on 11s on 2 dice. And the chances of him winning are very, very low. He'd really need to crit. Note that I'm critting on 1s as well as my target number. And I believe, yeah, I've got 5 people in the link team here, so it's a full-on Shishkin link team. Now, I don't know how to put this into words, but I'll try. Somehow, and look, you kind of had to be there to really, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but Shishkin loses the face-to-face roll against the Helot because I think she gets a couple of 19s and 20s in there and a couple of really low dice rolls, and the Helot rolls something like a 9 or a 10 with one of his dice, and the missile hits Shishkin. So no crits from me, no crits from him. He gets one of the rockets through, and Shishkin loses. But that's okay. If I pass the first dice roll, I'm fine. If I fail the first one and pass the next one, you know, I can try again. If I fail 2 of them in a row, I go unconscious. I just have to pass the 3rd one, and then I can revive myself with the guy at the back. But what happens here is that somehow Shishkin not only loses the face-to-face roll when it's 18s on 5 dice versus 11s on 2 dice, without crits on either side, but Shishkin fails all 3 armor saves in a row, and is removed. So we have to pause for a second, try and understand how that is emotionally. You know, you don't really enjoy the receiving end of that kind of luck when it's that astronomical. I mean, he's just been unlucky to lose his Seraph. You know, you're throwing 3 armor saves there against a missile and failing all 3 of them. But you were expecting to lose the face-to-face roll against 2 missiles hitting on 18s at that range, you know, between 32 to 40. But for Shishkin to lose that and then fail all the armor saves is feels astronomical, doesn't it? Not only that, but this is a tournament where I've played Shishkin 4 games in a row. In game 2, she just got completely removed by a missile. In game 3, she repeatedly shot at a Dakini and actually went unconscious. I had to revive her, and then after like the 5th or 6th attempt, she finally does damage the Dakini. And that's the only work she does that game, apart from killing 1 Delta. And then in the game after that, she loses to a Rushi. And then she can't even kill the freaking Mowang. And then she gets flash pulsed in her last turn. And then it comes to this game and she just gets shot by a 9-point Helot. So it's not been a good tournament for Shasvastii, and in particular it's not been a good tournament for Shishkin. My only hope is that people don't go away from this video series and go, oh, okay, well, Shishkin's fine, she's balanced, she doesn't win all the time. This is just really, really bad luck. A lot of the time, Shishkin is just going to clean house and win games purely because you'll see crits left and right. If we saw the opposite of this, and in those last 4 games, I was just throwing crits every second, attempt, as is what happens a lot of the time, you'd be looking at this and going, wow, he's winning really easily. His opponents are no good. Shishkin's too powerful. We need to write home about this. We need to complain on the forums. But don't look too deeply into the short-term results. I always encourage you guys to consider more about the expected value of decisions, the expectation of the statistics and the probability. Anyway, game goes on, and the best thing you can do in the situation is not to tilt too hard and really just do your best and see if there's a chance to win. And look, this is still technically a winnable game. He still has to come over to my objective, and I still have a hacker there, so I might be able to possess one of his tags later on. So spending the remaining orders to revive, well, not revive anybody, basically just move the tag around and try and have a shot at the Helot. I believe, I can't remember whether that failed as well. I was probably, a little bit too out of it at the time, with tears rolling down my cheeks from Shishkin being removed. Moving on, the Caliban going after the Spec Ops here and unfortunately not killing him, attempting to with his Spitfire but not managing to destroy him. Reforming the Link team over here and just putting people into cover and just hanging back. I think I did manage to kill a Helot, not 100% though. We've also got an R-drone moving around here just to be a bit more of an annoyance in case Joan starts to stand up. And over here we've got the T-drone just covering the objective and the distance. That's where the Helot was. Okay, so my opponent in his turn 2 decides to be a bit tricky here and activate the Flash Pulse bot. And activate it within zone of control of the target creature to force it to reset, because even though it can't do a change of facing, reset is the other valid zone of control ARO, so I'm forced to waste my ARO so that the Flash Pulse can move into close combat, so that when the cutter attacks me, he'll have 2 dice rather than 1. Now crucially, and I hope you guys can forgive me for such a blunder, I completely forgot that target creatures have 6th Sense level 1, which would have meant that he couldn't have done this. If he had moved and then just idled with his Flash Pulse bot and then moved in close combat, I would have been able to berserk it and just kill it, which would have been a great outcome for me, to be honest. But I'd forgotten about that completely. Over here, we do have the Spec Ops going in for the kill against my Caliban, but the Caliban managing to engage successfully. And that allows him to be moved over next to this guy in close combat. So the Caliban actually doing a bit of work, despite being isolated. Over here, it's Tag versus Tiger Creature. I decided not to berserk because that would have meant that I definitely would have lost the Tiger Creature at the, and probably done 1 or maybe 2 wounds on the tag, which I didn't really care about. What I really wanted to do was just tie him up and cause him to spend more orders. And when it's the Tiger Creature's close combat ability against the cutter on 2 dice, I'm hoping for a high dice roll and getting damage done anyway. But not the case. The cutter wins immediately and destroys the Tiger Creature because he's got 2 dice. Then he's able to storm forward through the battlefield and go after me. So he's getting around here, he's able to do a bit of damage to my troopers, firing at my R-drone, that kind of thing. And hang out here, go after the T-drone, of course. He's able to rip into the T-drone on this side of the battlefield. Better move my camera, that's the T-drone in the top right there, and rip that one up. And he knows that, of course, the Caliban up here, of course, does not have a hacking device. Monstrucker moving out now, or at least thinking about it. I think he was just really positioning him there just to consider that. And also Joan moving prone, I believe, or maybe not prone, towards the position of the Caliban. She feels that she'll be able to remove him. And that's indeed what she does, moving up here, briefly considering going into close combat with him, but that's a bit of a risk. She's only got one wound left because the Noctifer ran her into NWI. So if she goes into close combat, she's +3, -3 to me, I'm +3 to myself, and that's it. She'll have 2 dice. She's got an advantage there, but if she just gets unlucky, let's say I roll like a 16 and she rolls like a 2 and a 10 and has to take a save, she could die, and that would be really problematic. So the better thing for her to do here is to shoot into close combat with her multi-rifle, which she does indeed do, and does indeed destroy the Caliban that way. I think, if I recall correctly, the Spec Ops also dies, but I'm not 100% sure if I recall that. I think that was what happened, though. Okay, so Shasvastii turn again. This is Shasvastii turn 2, and the tiger creatures are now moving towards the stairs because Joan's up there. So she's attracting all of the impetuous moves. And we are able to get one of them up towards close at the top of the staircase, and I'm feeling like, even though this is a bad situation, I'm down a lot of models. He's only got 1 turn left. I still may be able to possess the tag as it moves in towards me. And the tiger creature is able to go prone after using Impetuous, move towards over here, spend a command token to get into position, and then just charge into close combat with Joan, berserk her, killing her, and removing her. So that means that in the final PanO turn, he's going to be in Lost Lieutenant. He's going to have to spend some command tokens, just moving 1 tag towards my beacon to try and grab it if he wants a chance of winning. Also repositioning my Shrouded, because I know he's in the wrong part of the battlefield. So the Shrouded repositioning and walking towards the objective beacon. So just repositioning here. The beacon's below this balcony there, so the Shrouded will be in range of this sort of alleyway, this street, as he moves his cutter in towards the beacon, right? You can see the cutter is over here at the moment. So that's the plan. Now, that's pretty much all I can do, and indeed, this is pretty much all my opponent can do. So moving around with the cutter, and really important fine-tuning of the rules here. Most people agree that you are assumed to be using stealth because it's an automatic ability until such a time as you say that you're not. So if you are not a marker state but you're just walking across the battlefield as a model but you still have stealth, I can't react with my hacker. Sometimes it's better for him to force the reaction first, because if he moves without stealth, then I have to hack at that point or forfeit my ARO. And if I hack at that point, he can then reset. But I didn't want to ask him about this, because as soon as I ask the question, that gives away the plan. It's a tell that prompts him to wonder why I'm asking, and then he realizes. So we're waiting here for the cutter to come all the way through the street. And after declaring his move, I declare no reaction with the Shrouded, because technically stealth is still on, and he's not told me he's removing it. So these guys react with like a combi rifle and a dodge towards the tag, and he shoots his HMG, and the Shrouded can then go with a total control onto the tag, which fails at this point. After we have a quick discussion about how the rules work, he agrees with my assessment. Total control is attempted and fails. The tag is not possessed. So there's the Shrouded, and he knows what the game is. However, after killing my 2 guys here quite easily, he has to go for it again, otherwise he's got no chance of completing the mission. So he moves in, picks up the objective, and then gets possessed. So the cutter is under my control, and it's going to go straight into my turn after this because he's got no more orders, and here we are. So that's a possessed tag right there. Only problem is that he, with his rest of his turn, moves over with his Monstrucker and revives the Seraph, and that completes the test run objective. He also gets a bonus objective point for that one because the scenario says that the ones with that particular icon get +1. So he's actually on 2 points to 0 now, which means that if I don't get to his objective, it's not going to be a draw, he'll just win. And if I complete my classified, it'll just be a 2-1 to him. And unfortunately, because my army has been so badly screwed up, it's going to be really hard. He in fact repositions his Seraph to defend against the possessed tag, and his Flash Pulse being set up there. So initially, Tiger Creature moving out, and then I've got to move the tag, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is really difficult. He's starting around here. He can move, shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot. But if he keeps doing that, he's not going to be able to get to the objective in time. I think I've got 5 orders total. So if you move, shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot, I mean, the movement speed of 4 while you're possessed multiplied by 5 is 20 inches. But that might not even be enough. But if I just move, 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 move without shooting, I'm going to take flash pulse hits every single time. And if I get flash pulse, well, that's the end of it. I'll see if I can find an appropriate photograph of where I'm having to go. I think this one will serve correctly. So what we're doing is we're starting here. The tag is base to base with that beacon. It needs to move through this alleyway around there towards this beacon. And the entire time it's going to get shot at by a flash pulse over here, and over here. Because there's the tech B, there's the other flash pulse spot, there's the other flash pulse spot, and a Seraph shooting there. So he's got to get through all of that. But there is a chance. If he makes it there and picks it up, then I've won the game. The other way to go is to come around this side. And that will minimize my exposure to flash pulses. So I thought what I'll do is I'll go back into marker state, then I'll move around here, move around here, and then move into base contact with the objective. But after doing that and spending the orders, and after him doing various different discover attempts, we get to this point here and we realize that I've made a complete blunder of it and misjudged the measurement, and would have worked out that I would have sort of moved over here and run out of speed and would have run out of orders before I actually hit the objective. So that's a very anticlimactic way to finish this game. If we look back at it, what I could have done is just moved through the center and just hoped that he failed all of his flash pulse attempts, that I passed the BTS saves, that kind of thing, and made it there. So that would have been a better way to do it, take that risk. I thought that I would have had enough movement around the side, but I misjudged that, so that's my fault. I deprived myself of a long shot, Hail Mary chance of winning the game. So this game was quite dramatic. God, it was painful losing Shishkin in a 5-man link team to a 9-point Helot. That really stung. Would I have won this game if that had not happened? I think that I would have, because I would have been able to bully my way into the middle of the table and do that. Would I have won this game if I'd just killed that Spec Ops with the first round without killing Joan? Yeah, my chances would have been pretty good, because I would have had the Caliban activated in the middle of the table as well. That missile onto the Seraph, was that lucky? Was that a big deal? It kind of was, but kind of wasn't. That Seraph was going to be driven back into cover anyway. Shishkin may well have taken him on. It's possible Shishkin could have done 3 wounds to him just with a 5-burst Red Fury. She could have got a couple of crits and he could have failed an armor save, that kind of thing. So I think with having last turn there and being able to move out like that would have been really good. Also, if I'd remembered my 6th Sense on my Tiger Creature against that Cutter, that could have been really handy as well, because he wouldn't have been able to free the Cutter up as easily. Imagine if he had spent that whole turn just trying to remove the Tiger Creature, or if the Tiger Creature in fact had destroyed the Cutter there and then. That could have happened. I mean, he could have rolled a couple of low dice, Tiger Creature hits with a crit, fails the other armor save because it's double action, tries it again, Cutter dies. There were so many things that could have gone wrong for PanO that didn't, and there were so many things that could have gone wrong for Shasvastii that in fact did. So, a disappointing end to the tournament, getting crushed in the last couple of games, unfortunately. But I thought that I played pretty well, and these Shasvastii lists, they are really good lists, especially this Shishkin list. I think it's a really, really strong list. It's just a shame that I got so unlucky both games with it, and maybe made a couple of minor mistakes as well. So, again, if you're looking to play a really solid Shasvastii list, I still recommend it. Just because I did badly with it doesn't mean that you're going to do badly with it as well. So end up placing 5th or something like that out of 16 players. That's fine. Looking forward to playing some more games in future. We'll take a short break from Shasvastii. I've got some other cool list ideas for Onyx and for Ikari, and also going to be moving to possibly playing some foreign companies soon, buying some foreign company minis. So look out for that. But as always, thanks for checking in. We'll have a lot more content for you in the near future. And yeah, thanks for watching as always.